All right, what's up, fight fans, and welcome back to All Access MMA. We got another weekend around the corner and another great set of fights. It's UFC Vegas 72, and I have the Joker, Jay Perrin, back to do his co-host duties with me, and Mr. Daniel Vreeland on the show for the first time. Daniel, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Great to have you back on the show, Jay, as well. And we got another great card to talk about, guys. So let's start right at the top. Like always, Ricky Simón, Song Yadong is your main event. And it's essentially a pick 'em almost. It's very close. I'm looking at Bet Online right now. Ricky Simón, -116. Song is -104. Daniel, I want to start with you here on this one. What are your thoughts of this main event matchup? What do you think about it from a betting aspect?
I think Ricky Simón's kind of being slept on. I know Song Yadong's got like that knockout power, and I think he's an incredible puncher. But dude, Ricky Simón, are we forgetting this guy tapped out Merab Dvalishvili? Put him to sleep.
No, hold on. Time.
He put him to sleep.
He didn't tap. Merab did not tap. Don't you dare put that on his name. There's a
true.
reason he went to sleep.
Yeah, that's true. That guy don't tap. That guy don't tap. So he put him to sleep. And in addition to that, like, Song Yadong has had issues with takedown defense before, right? Like he got taken down by Kyler Phillips a couple of times, and not that Kyler is not a good wrestler, but Kyler is not on the same level as Ricky Simón. So I like Ricky Simón, especially at this price here.
Jay, obviously you're feeling the same way.
I'm right there with him, and honestly, I might be a little biased because I know Ricky and I've trained with him before, but with that experience, like he's like a tiny little refrigerator is what he is, but he's just very, very well rounded. You know what I mean? He can box, he can do the dog thing, he can be a better wrestler than you, and he can adapt on the fly. I just think that he's a better overall. Songs, obviously, it'll be said over and over and over again. It only takes one for Song to really affect you, and that's fine. But like, I just think that Ricky's got more tools. You know what I mean? He's got a big old head. I've hit Ricky really hard before, and my hand hurt more than his head did. I guarantee it. You know what I mean? So like, I just think it's really hard to just put him away. And should that happen, you know what I mean? Like, I think that even if he were to get rocked, he would be able to adapt and overcome that one issue, because that's really the only way I see him losing that fight is like, if as the longer it goes, the better it is for Ricky. So I would say it's, you know, I'm giving it to Ricky as well.
I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on, I guess, where he's at in his career right now, because you mentioned the big win over Merab. That was back in 2018. Ricky, he's only 30 years old now. He had those losses to Font and Faber after the big win over Merab, and then he's been on a streak ever since. He's won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row against some high-level opponents.
In a row, yes.
Do you feel like his best years are still ahead of him?
Oh yeah.
How did you say it was again?
30.
Oh, hell yeah. Absolutely. Because people's, like, it used to be like the peak of an athlete has kind of changed, or at least the window has seemingly, with how people train and like the methods they're doing to prepare. Longevity is more of a thing in the sport than I think it ever has been. That's why you see people that are, you know what I mean? Obviously with USADA in place, there's no, tomfoolery going on, in their 36, 37 years old, and they're still competing at top 5 levels. You know what I mean? So like 30 to Michael Chandler's what?
He's got to be up there.
I know that's like a fucking crazy example, but he's still like 37 years old. Do you know what I mean? There's different 37s. So like certain people peak 30 to 33. Some people peak later, but your 30s seems to be still like you have plenty of time until you get to like 39, 40. So I think that it's, right where he's at is fine. I don't think that, he's been on a good tear. I don't see why he can't compete at top 5 level. You know what I mean? You see guys at 34, 35 years old. Rob Font. How old is Rob Font?
Yeah, he's right up there, 230.
You know what I mean?
35,
and he just looked like a maniac. You know what I mean? So like I think that's an old thing. I don't think that hitting 30 for maybe in our sport matters as much. Do you know what I mean?
I think he's a young 30 too, because the other thing is you see some of those guys get to 30, 34, that kind of range, and they've been hit in the head a ton of times. To your point, he's durable and hasn't been hit a bunch, apart from the Uriah Faber punch that seems like a fluke and like it never happened. Like
Uriah's gonna hold on to that for the rest of his life.
He sure is. And like apart from that, though, when have we seen Ricky like on skates or something like that? Like the guy is
maybe Marab, but that's just pace. That was a crazy ass fight.
That wasn't pure power, right? You're right.
No, dude, it was just pure pace. You know what I mean? I've never seen somebody just, and I'm not saying that Song can't do that. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that he can't, but it's just few and far between we see somebody just make Ricky dizzy enough to not be able to, you know what I mean, adapt and come back. I just think that 30 doesn't matter as much. I apologize for cutting you off.
Oh no, you made my point for me. No, exactly. Like he is a young 30, and I think he's got tons of time in front of him.
Yeah, one thing's for certain, guys. The winner of this fight, it really moves them right up the ladder. It positions them well for a high level, maybe a title eliminator at some point, around the corner.
That's the thing about 35 men, is that like you could really make a case for just about anybody in like the top 6 or 7 at this point. Like, and people make fun of me all the time on Twitter for saying it, but I really do think that 35 is the deepest division they've got. And the only reason is I'll say that people will say 55, and I think the top 5 of 55 is probably the purest of all of the top 5s. But at 35, you could interchange numbers 1 through 15 in those names, and people would probably be totally fine with whatever names you like. People wouldn't think that would be wrong. You know what I mean? That's how competitive and how many high level guys there are at 35. So like, it might move the marker a little bit. It might not, dude. You know what I mean? It's because it's such a, like, it's hard to be successful at 35. So like, and especially at the top.
Yeah, and the other thing about 35 too is, which I like a lot better than 55, is they're like a little bit more willing to fight each other top to bottom. You know what I mean? Like you see a guy like, Rob Font fight a few spots down the rankings, rather than like the top of 55, they only want to fight each other. Right? Like, how hard is it for Beneil Dariush to get a freaking fight, for God's sakes? Like,
they're running. Stop it. We're not going to get going, because they're running from Benny, dude. Stop it. You know what I mean? At this point, it's crazy. It's just blatant. You're running from Benny now.
And so now at least 35's fighting, right? Like, Piotr Jan gave Sean O'Malley a shot, right? Like, Dominic Cruz gave Marlon Vera a shot. Like, they're letting people come up the rankings in that division. Whereas they're not in the other one, right? Like, when was the last time Dustin Poirier fought down the rankings? When was the last time, we saw Conor McGregor?
None of them are gonna fight Armin.
No, who would?
At the
top?
Who
Fight
Armin? Who's trying to fight Armin at the top? Yeah, because he's a young, hungry dog, and he can absolutely stick with both. If he learns a little bit better hands, he's gonna start, and that's what they won't take that risk, because they know once you're usurped, it's very hard to get back. You know what I mean? So like, they'll hold on to it. But 35, like you said, Piotr Jan had there was no upside to him like taking that fight, really. No, he just wanted to fight and thought he was going to whoop his ass. And well, you know what I mean? I'll let you decide who won that fight. But you get what I'm saying.
Bantamweight is a murderer's row. There's so many killers. Not even just in the top 15, outside of the top 15 as well. That's the main event. Ricky Simón, Song Yadong. We'll keep it moving. We'll go to the co-main event. This is a middleweight bout between Borralho and Michał Oleksiejczuk. And Borralho is a pretty sizable favorite here, -360. Oleksiejczuk is the dog, +295. Jay, do you feel like there's some dog money here on Oleksiejczuk, or is the smart bet on Borralho?
Let me just pull it up real fast. I think the smart money's on him, to be honest with you. I don't know much about both of them, to be honest with you. I didn't really look at this fight. I've been so focused on everything else. I'm actually looking at different notes. So Daniel, go before me. That's basically what I'm saying.
I'm a big Caio Borralho guy. I've interviewed him like 100 times at this point, so I'm like a little bit biased on this one. But I will tell you, I really like the way that he mixes his grappling and his striking, particularly in the way that he like holds people down. We saw him on the Contender Series fight up a weight class on short notice, so that he got a second Contender Series fight in like, I think he did 2 in 3 weeks or 2 in 4 weeks or something like that. And they gave him a really tough out, a guy who was really, and that's after beating Aaron Jeffrey.
Yeah.
And Aaron Jeffrey, no slouch there either. He's out there tearing up Bellator, with the exception of the John Salter fight.
Beautiful mustache and mullet on Aaron Jeffrey.
Gotta have a good Canadian mullet.
Oh my
Canadian
God.
Mullet.
And he's Canadian to boot, What are you talking about,
Anyway. But yeah, Caio Borralho, excellent top control. Michał Oleksiejczuk, I think we're talking about him the same way we're talking about Song Yadong. He's got the one-hitter quitter. He's got phenomenal power. but the guys he's knocking out are not as nuanced on the feet as Caio Borralho, in my opinion.
So I'm clearly saying his name wrong. It's Kai, not Chow.
Yeah, I mean,
yikes.
I believe it's Caio Borralho, like Ohio with a B. Yeah, but that's a tough one. That's one of those Brazilian names that you can say a different way every single time, and it's probably still not wrong.
You need to go to the John Anik School of Name Pronunciation to work in this field and understand all the names of these UFC fighters. It's hard.
Crazy.
Give me that.
I'm glad it was you this time and not me, because I messed up somebody's name last year. I just looked in the camera. I'm like, I'm so sorry if you ever see this. Sorry.
It's hard. It is hard, but we're trying our best. So Kai, I'll get it right from here on out. I mean, I think it's the safe bet. You look at what he's done so far in the UFC, the higher level of opponent. I mean, that big win at Contender Series as well that we talked about. I mean, I think that this kid has a very, very high ceiling. So I think that's a pretty safe bet. If I was going to be putting a DraftKings lineup together, I feel pretty confident sliding Kai into my lineup. We'll stay right with the middleweight division, guys. Cody, Brundage, Rodolfo, Vieira. Brundage is the dog, plus 190. Vieira is the favorite, minus 225. Daniel, I'm going to be biased with this one as well. I love me some Cody Brundage. He's a gentleman of a man, and I'm rooting for him to win. What does he got to do to pull off the small upset here?
He's got to use his wrestling and stay on his feet. We've seen the people who've beaten Rodolfo Vieira are the ones who can force him to box, right? Rodolfo Vieira shot 20 takedowns against Chris Curtis, freaking 20 takedowns, 20. And he didn't land a damn one, and guess what? He lost pretty bad. And so, like, I think as long as Cody Brundage follows that game plan, I think he'll be fine here, because I do think he's a better boxer. I think he's got way better power. And the fact that he does have that wrestling base, he's short, he's stocky to the ground. I think he's got to circle off the cage a lot. Because the thing about Rodolfo is his hands have been getting better. He's been putting 1-2s together. He's starting to move in and get closer, doing better of not shooting from really far away. Chris Curtis fight notwithstanding. And like, if Cody Brundage gets stuck up against the cage and he gets a hold of his legs, man, dude, I don't know anybody who wants to grapple with Rodolfo Vieira at 185 pounds. Maybe Anthony Hernandez once he tires him out a little bit, but apart from that, nobody really wants any of that. Yeah. So, I think Cody Brundage, I think it's great dog money here at, like you said, plus 190. Keep it standing, circle away, hit the big bombs.
Yeah, like you said, Dan, I think he's got the blue, like Chris Curtis put the blueprint down on Rodolfo a little bit until he can just refine his striking a little bit more. I think that he was in that fight particularly thought that he could just take anybody down at any time. And I think you realize that pure grappling takedowns and MMA takedowns are entirely different. You're totally right. I got Brundage for the dog money for sure. I think that he's got that exact game plan. He's going to get off the fence. If that's really the only way I see Rodolfo getting a takedown, is really engaging the clinch and then working from like single leg stuff from there. But out in the open, I just don't see that happening. And Brundage has more pop on his punches, just a more polished striker. So that's good dog money in my opinion as well.
I love the picks, guys. You're right where I'm at with this one. I'm definitely like I said, I'm a little bit of a homer. I'll get that right out there in the open, but I do agree. Objectively speaking, I think there's some dog money here on Cody Brundage. Up next is a featherweight bout. Julian, Juicy J, Erosa, Fernando, Padilla. Erosa is your favorite, minus 150. Padilla is the dog, plus 125. Jay, let me start with you here on this one.
I'm biased. I love me some Julian Erosa, man. I love this guy, dog. This guy is you know what, dude? I follow him on Instagram sometimes, and he'll do 60-mile runs or some shit just like on a Sunday because he can. And I'm like, this man is just so much more masculine than I am in every way, shape, or form. You know what I mean? But like, it's like he's just got that dog in him. You know what I mean? And for somebody like me that's the kind of fight that I thrive in is dog fights. And I think that like some people are good in scrambles is wrestling. Like maybe you're not a great wrestler, but you're a great scrambler. Like that's like I would say I'm a good scrambler. I'm not a great wrestler. It's kind of the same with Julian. And that chaos is kind of where he kind of finds himself. And I'm just a personal fan of that. So that's a good favorite for me. I'm going to go with Julian there.
I actually can't believe he's not more of a favorite too. Negative 150 to a debuting fighter like Padilla. Like, it's like we're sleeping on the fact that Erosa was on a 3-fight win streak before he lost that one to Caceres.
Oh,
and
it's
like,
only one. You only need one, dude.
Yeah,
once
and
you lose one,
they forget about you. They forget about you.
Don't do it to me. Don't I know it, brother?
Yeah.
You know.
And the thing too about that fight is what a weird combination to be knocked out on, right? He throws that left hook and a left head kick right behind it,
Very odd.
Yeah, super odd thing, and of course, it's something that Bruce Leroy does because he's an odd kind of striker.
Caceres is also one of those weird anomalies in MMA. You know what I mean? Like that's the definition of streaky. He could be on a 5-fight skid, and then he'll do 12 straight where he looks like a world killer, and then it just poofs. It's like a magician.
Then he'll have that Kron Gracie fight. He'll have that Kron Gracie fight.
Exactly. Like. If you look at it like, oh, I lost Alex Caceres. Well, Alex Caceres has when Mario runs into that star and he becomes invincible, that's where Alex Caceres kind of just goes sometimes. You're like, oh, well, Alex Caceres just showed up that night. That's all that means because he's actually Bruce Lee in human form. But yeah.
That's the thing.
And I'll also say Padilla too, just for the record. So some people probably don't know Padilla. He really doesn't move his head off the center line. I was watching a couple of his old fights. If you don't move your head off the center line against Julian Erosa, you are not going to survive very long. You're just going to get knocked into a different dimension. And I think that's what happens to him here too.
Daniel, I'm really, really intrigued to hear what you think about this upcoming fight, because as far as MMA journalists and everything goes, so much about the younger fighters, the up and comers, and both of these guys are still very, very young in their career. Trey Waters making his UFC debut on short notice. I just spoke to him after he won the LFA title. He was saying that I'm ready for that UFC call. I want a short notice call, and boom, the very next day he got it. And he's got a tough opponent, Josh Quinlan. Waters is the dog, plus 155. Quinlan's your favorite, minus 180. And man, Quinlan, all of his wins are by finish. Yeah. This guy's a monster. So preview this one for me, man. What do you see in this fight?
Yeah, and I know you'll say all of his finishes or all of his wins are finishes, and you point to a couple of submissions in there. Dude, anytime he submitted somebody, it's because he hit him with a hard overhand right, and then he just decided to go submission after that.
Smashed him and then took their neck, which is a valid, you know what I mean? Yeah. Way to win,
But he does it. But my point is, he's not some sort of jiu-jitsu ace down there. He's not taking Trey Waters down in this fight. But he wants to box. And I'll say this: I really love Trey Waters. I think he's got so much potential, especially with that frame. He's such a weirdly shaped dude for that division. What is he 6'5" or 6'6"?
Something like that.
170 pounds. That's insane. But I will say I don't like him on 2 weeks' notice. The fact that he's getting no training camp for this, and he's just coming off of a fight, a really tough fight too. It's not like that Jalen Fuller fight was not a tough one. He took a couple of shots in that fight too. I think that's kind of, you got to get to the UFC the way you got to get to the UFC, and this is the way he's got to get to the UFC. And a short training camp against a guy who hits as hard as Quinlan does. I'd like to pick Trey Waters, but I think just the safer pick here is that Josh Quinlan just finally lands one of those big hands.
Takes his head off. And Josh, by the way, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. To be honest, such a sweetheart, but he'll literally rip your head off inside there. But no, I think that's astute as well. You know what I mean? I think that, like you said, I'm glad you mentioned his frame, because I like that you used the phrase, he's such a weird shaped guy, because I've actually said that out loud to myself, and I'm like, I'm wrong for that. There's no way, but that's definitely true. He's but I definitely think that same way Quinlan's going to land one of those bombs of his and put him into the nether realm. You know what I mean? Because I'm also a little biased. I do like Josh. He's a friend of mine. So I don't know Trey, but good luck to you. You Jack Skellington shaped motherfucker.
Well, Jay, you would know this. Is there something to be said for, you're making your UFC debut. You're doing it on short notice. You're expected to lose. So you really don't have anything to lose. You just go in there and you're loose. And you just let it all go. I mean, we saw what Kevin Kroom did in his UFC debut fight. Yeah. It was a huge dog there. Is there something to that?
I mean, I think no fighter goes in there and says, I'm cool with losing. You know what I mean? Everybody go put on 2 weeks notice, 6 days notice, and shit like that. You expect that, you know what I mean? If you do come up on the other end of it, you understand that the circumstances made the outcome different than it normally would have been. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, when I fought Mario, before I got the matchup, I'm like, it's probably going to be Mario, and that's going to be a tough one. You know what I mean? It's 6'6", 6 weeks, that's a different fight. You know what I mean? 2 weeks, oh, that man is a monster. You know what I mean? So like I guess so, but I guess you wish that you had more time. You know, I wish I could have more time so I could show the proper performance that I believe that I could, but they only give you the amount of time. So I think that when you go there and you do lose, the sting doesn't hit as hard, but you still don't want to.
Yeah.
You want, everybody has this. It's like when people dream of stuff when they're a kid. You know what I mean? When like you're a young fighter, you work so hard and your debut is this thing in your mind. And then 6 days or 2 weeks, 14 days, you're spending just sweating and being miserable. It's just kind of different than how I think most people see it.
No, yeah, well said. Well, we'll see what happens. I can't wait for this bout. Again, it's a welterweight one. We'll keep it moving, guys. We'll go up to the big boys, the heavyweight division. Walter Cortes-Acosta and Marcos Rogério de Lima. De Lima is your favorite, -165. Cortes-Acosta is the dog, +135. I was a little surprised by that, Daniel. What were you surprised by the odds? Do you feel like they have this right?
So I think they got it right, but I am surprised by the odds at the same exact time because I thought that the dog money was going to be on Rogério de Lima because, like, look, he's been in the UFC for 9 years. And still, we're not talking about him as if he's.
It's a heavyweight.
Yeah, it's a heavyweight. Who's got that kind of longevity outside of Andre Arlovski, right? Yeah. And Waldo Cortes-Acosta, he's the new hot thing, right? He's boxing, he's knocking people out. He was on Contender Series. Everybody loves a guy off of Contender Series. And the thing about Waldo Cortes-Acosta, though, is I don't really trust his takedown defense. If you watch that fight against Chase Sherman, like Chase Sherman got a little wrestling going. And I don't think too highly of Chase Sherman's wrestling. Like, he's not a heavyweight wrestler, right? He was a bare knuckle boxer for a little while in Louisiana, and now he's going to shoot a takedown and get Waldo Cortes-Acosta down. Marcos Rogério de Lima just took it to the aforementioned 44-year-old Andre Arlovski in the grappling department, who's still not a tough dude, or still a tough dude to take down, right? Like, the only people taking him down and submitting him is Marcos Rogério de Lima and Tom Aspinall, and like that's a fun list to be on. So I think Rogério de Lima probably just like forces him to fight a grittier fight than he's fought so far. Like pins him against the cage, wears him down, sees what he's really made of at 265 pounds. Because he is a smaller heavyweight too. I think he's only like 240, 245 pounds. And Rogério de Lima is a thick dude. So I think he makes this one gritty.
2 C's, dude. 2 C's thick, this guy. But
Jay, you feeling the same way?
I do as well, and I just don't think that 9 years in the UFC as a heavyweight says more to me than I think it does to other people. It means that this man has been at least successful for 9 years, and so like he's experienced, and he's probably fought a ton of people like this. And like what Daniel said, I think that if he closes the distance, it makes it a dog fight, like a really gritty fight. Then he's got a better advantage than Cortes-Acosta does. I think that experience will come into play here. So I think that I think Waldo will probably pull it up, but I think that it's closer than it seems. I'm going Waldo because he's on the youth side. You know what I mean? He's more new to me, but I think 9 years does speak to something. You know what I mean? That's a guy that can adapt on the fly or is skilled enough to. You're a heavyweight, man. I don't care what you say. Once you're over 220, it's anything goes. It's chaos, to be completely honest. Because I don't care if you're 240. If I hit you at 230, it's still 230 pounds hitting you in the face. So like I guess that's the stat that's really like making me kind of weird about it, because experience does come into play, and he has been in the biggest weight class in the most successful promotion for near a decade, and maybe he's gone unnoticed, but that's still not a feat. You know what I mean? To consider when you're going up against an opponent like that. I guess that's the thing so I would still go with Waldo, but I think that's just something that should be considered as well.
Oh, who doesn't like watching the big boys get in there and throw down? And we got another heavyweight bout to preview as well. Martin Buday, Jake Collier, and this is essentially another kind of a pick 'em. Collier -115, Buday -105, and Buday 11-1, Collier 13-8. So their records are very, very different. What are you guys thinking on this one? Are the odds right, or is this kind of funky?
Pardon me. Pulling it up. Go ahead. Go ahead, Daniel. You're up.
Yeah, I'll start with this one. I think the odds are right on this one. Like I think this fight could go either way. I think Jake Collier is a little sharper with the hands for he will be for most of the early part of the fight. Martin Buday likes to throw like 3 hooks in a row and just like sprint at you like Vitor Belfort used to. Only he's not shaped or has the speed of Vitor Belfort. So it doesn't look nearly as good. Jake Collier is like a little
or the
sharper.
Steroids.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, like looks like maybe he could use a couple, but
can't we all?
That being said, yeah, Jake's just like got the more technical striking. But the thing about Jake Collier is in his last 2 fights, he really tired out in the second and third round. Like, and I know some of that is because he tagged a guy and he had him woozy and Chris Huggy Bear Barnett. Like, and like you get excited when you do that. But like Buday's pretty durable. So I think I'm leaning towards Buday here. I just think that like as the fight goes on, he winds up being better.
And Collier isn't originally a heavyweight, is he? His frame isn't originally. He's a middleweight, correct? So, like, maybe when you came up to middleweight, came up from middleweight because you wanted to be fat. Let's be honest. You know what I mean? You wanted to eat whatever you want, and that's fine. Do whatever. You might have had a speed advantage, but like, if your frame isn't naturally supposed to carry that much, that does affect you over time, and like you're like how much energy production matters. I just don't think that like you move up 3 weight classes or 2 weight classes, but like 1 weight class. How much does he weigh? How much is he weighing in at?
I think he hits the max. I think
265. You went from 185 to 265. I don't care. That's a lifetime of change. You know what I mean? I just don't think athletically, because your frame is a certain way, that you can last against, especially because you're not, and you don't have the pop on that punch. Just because you're bigger doesn't mean that you have the same kind of pop as a naturally 265-pound man. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna hit him. Yeah, you might have speed, but like unless you're naturally that big, you'll naturally have that power. And I just don't think that's there for Jake Collier. I'm gonna go with the former on this one.
Yeah, I'm staying away from this one from a betting aspect. I'm not really sure what to think about it. I'm kind of going back and forth a little bit. So when that happens with me, I just stay away. There's plenty of other fights to bet on, much like this next one. My goodness, this is one I have circled. I really can't wait to see what happens. Cody Durden, Charles Johnson. Durden is the dog, plus 120. Charles Johnson is your favorite, minus 140. Jay, let me start with you here on this one. What do you think?
Charles Johnson is the favorite?
Minus 140 over Cody Durden. You
don't
like
that? I don't know
if
I agree with that. I don't know if I agree. Isn't Johnson coming off a loss right now?
Yeah, like a month ago.
And Durden's on a win streak. Correct?
I thought the same thing.
Am I bugging?
No, you're not bugging.
No, not at all.
Who's making the odds? That just doesn't make sense to me. How can someone that's lost recently even? Do you know what I mean? I don't get that at all. I think, but I think that it's a great fight. I don't know. That was just very confusing to me. I think Durden's going to wrestle the hell out of him, to be honest with you. I don't think it's wise for him to stand up. And I maybe if Durden's not smart, maybe his coaches are, and he'll listen to them. But I just don't see that him standing in the middle with Charles, top G, and just trading with him. I think he's going to level change. And as good as Charles is at getting up, I think Durden's better at keeping people there. You know what I mean? So I'm going with Cody on this one. If it's dog money on Cody, go dog money. Yeah, that's in my own opinion. Same thing as earlier. More tools. Not that Charles wasn't impressive in his last one. I think that he did better. Wasn't it on short notice in his last one as well?
I believe so. That was against O'Day Osborne. He lost a split decision, but
my buddy O'Day, and it was a good fight.
It was so close fight.
I just think the takedowns will work into play. I don't think that he's going to trade with Charles like O'Day did. Like O'Day stood up with him a little bit.
And O'Day still got some takedowns too, which is worth noting. Right? Like O'Day stood in front of him and gave him the type of fight he wanted. And then when he decided he wanted to, put an exclamation point on a round or make sure that he was going to win that one, he grabbed a takedown or two too. And O'Day is a good wrestler. He was a high school wrestler. Not enough people, too many people sleep on his wrestling. Yep. But like Cody Durden is an animal. I mean, we saw what he did to Moda is like
very
Moda
impressive.
Could not get him off of him for the life of him. And so between that and Charles Johnson deciding to do this like quick turnaround, right? Because he fought O'Day so recently, and I know he's
the last 2 months, right?
Yeah,
it was very recent.
I think he's just trying to get that win right back. Like when you lose a close split decision, you want to get right back in there. that doesn't make it a good idea, though, right?
Like that, there just hasn't been enough time, like turnover for you to have have learned anything or have improved since that point. Yeah, I mean, so I get like the ego probably took the fight on this one instead of like the martial artists, because I just don't see, you know what I mean, objectively, like you're saying, like O'Day has good, and you know I love O'Day, but he's got good but not great wrestling, and to be quite honest, whenever he wanted to take you down, he did, and like I just don't see him having. O'Day is here and Cody is up here as far as wrestling goes. Yeah. I just don't see that as being like I think it's going to walk through him. You know what I mean? Like you said, Daniel, he's going to be able to, whenever he wants to, I'm going to put you on the ground. I'm going to keep you there, you know? So
we're in agreement on this one. I mean, this is some great dog money. Cody Durden plus 120. Get him now, because I think that's probably the gap is going to close as we get closer to fight night. Brian Kelleher, Journey Newson. Newson is plus 115. Brian Kelleher minus 140. Daniel, what are you thinking on this one?
And this is one of the fights I've gone back and forth the most on, because like I do like Brian Kelleher. I would also say I think Journey Newson is sometimes being slept on. I think he's got good hands. I think he's such a good striker, and I think people. And I know I keep pointing out these fights that I think people are harping on too much. I think people think of Journey Newson as the guy who got knocked out by Randy Costa.
Bless you.
And that's like silly. He's really sharp on the feet. And that's not to say that Brian Kelleher isn't either, right? Like Brian Kelleher is good too. But I think a Journey Newson who is not going to be fearing a takedown and knows he can stand and trade with somebody is going to look even better than people realize Journey Newson is. I mean, that's what happened in the Fernie Garcia fight. Fernie Garcia stood in front of him and traded with him. He stopped caring and stopped worrying about the takedowns because Fernie didn't have it. Out of him. And he beat the hell out. And Fernie Garcia is good.
Yeah, Fernie, on his feet, he's very, very good. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, you're good. I like it.
That was a great because the thing about Journey is that he doesn't believe in himself very well, and you can see it in how he fights, because his arsenal. I've sparred this man. I've lived with him. Like I've watched how he trains. This is a very technical dude. Like he has so many tricks in his toolbox. That we've never seen, you know what I mean? And he just hits flawlessly. But when he knows and has the confidence in his hands, like Fernie, perfect example. He just went, fuck it, I'm going for it. I'm going to hurt this kid. And when he has that, when that switch comes on, Journey's a different guy, because he's fast as hell and he can hit you from just about anywhere. You know what I mean? And not that his wrestling isn't good, because it is. Yeah, I would say that his scramble ability is really well. He's short, so it's hard to take him the fuck down. I think that when he believes in his striking, he's very dangerous, incredibly dangerous. Not to discredit Kelleher, he's been around for a very, very long time. But I do think that if we see, it depends on which Journey shows up to this fight. Do you know what I mean? If Journey worries too much about the takedown, like Daniel said, then it's probably going to be a tougher night for him. But if he just goes in there and goes, I'm just better, he'll mop the floor with. I would give him even a top 15 opponent at one point. He's very, very talented. I think it's astute.
I think what you said about the speed too is so key here. Like I think he's so much faster.
He's fast,
and if he just trusts the fact that he's faster and just gets after it, I think you're going to see him put a class on Kelleher. And at plus money, I mean, like that's another good dog play right there.
Journey's the dog.
Yeah,
take that dog for sure. And like I tell people this, and not again, I'm not trying to discredit Color, because again, he's been in the game a really long time, but mileage matters too. You know what I mean? Where you're at in your careers as well. And I would say Journey, even with as much roughness, the guy that got knocked out by Randy Costa. But you know what? People that say that, and both of them are my good friends. Where's Randy and where's Journey? You know what I mean? So like, remember that at the end of the day. I think that Journey is incredibly talented when he believes in how talented he is. So that's good dog money. I would take that all this.
The mental side of the fight game, it is huge. We definitely all know that. We're under 5 minutes, guys. So we got 2 fights left to get through. Stephanie Egger and Irina Alexieva. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, Daniel. You would probably know.
You got it.
Alexieva plus 235. Egger,
he doesn't know either.
The favorite minus 275. Do you have a favorite here in this one? Do you feel like the odds are right and Egger is probably going to get the win here?
Yeah, I do. Alexieva, from what I've seen on the regional scene, she like mostly just muscles a lot of takedowns, and she's fought a lot of women who are sort of inexperienced, and she could kind of just like put on the mat and beat up. She's also a little bit smaller than Egger. You know, she's a natural 125er. She can be fighting up at 135. And Egger's a judo specialist, so like if you're used to muscling takedowns and you're going to go up against a judo specialist, got some bad news for you.
Yep. She's gonna hip toss super hard. That's my assessment as well, and just being 4-1, man, that's green, man. You know, and green, you got to think about high pressure situations as well. And I just think that everything Daniel said, when you're trying to muscle people up against the cage and you're constantly not closing the distance, I think it's just like inexperience that people do that with. Their techniques somehow bring them together, and it ends up in like a clinch battle. And with somebody like Egger, you're just going to get hip tossed every time. They're great with momentum going backwards, the judo people. And I think it's an underappreciated art in MMA, especially when you have people like that just kind of blitz you in clinch situations. So I'm going Egger as well.
All right, one more, guys. Hailey Cowan and Jamey-Lyn Horth. Horth is the favorite here. -144 is what I'm seeing right now. Hailey Cowan is the dog, +124. I'm staying away from this one. I feel like these ladies are pretty evenly matched. I'm seeing a lot of picks going both ways. Do you feel a certain way about it, Jay?
Daniel, you go first, brother.
All right, I'll take Horth in this one. The sharp money is coming in on Horth real big. She was a big underdog when this first posted. She was like +150, +155 when it first posted. She's all the way up to being a favorite now. I think they see what she's done in LFA, and she was fighting in Canada for BFL too for a little while. She's like extremely strong. And the one thing about Hailey Cowan is that like Hailey Cowan also very physically strong.
Yep.
And I think Horth just uses her strength in a smarter way. She's got great head pressure up against the cage. Her takedowns are a little bit sharper. They're not, big body lock takedowns or anything like that. No. She can get it on the legs. She got good submissions. She's a finisher. She's 5-0 with 5 finishes, and she got finishes as an amateur too. Again, little green at 5. But she has got a lot more experience than somebody like Arena Alexieva. So, I like Jamey-Lyn Horth there.
I would just say the same exact thing, to be honest with you. I don't know much about both ladies. If we're betting on it, my expertise isn't probably going to be the one you're going to listen to. It's going to be Daniel's for sure. Yeah. But from whatever I did say, it is very, very evenly matched. So good luck to both. But I got nothing for that one.
Fair enough. Yeah, well, I would definitely go with Daniel's take on that one as well. Well, that does it, guys. We got through all of the fights on the card. It's UFC Vegas 72 this upcoming weekend at the UFC Apex. Jay, as always, I appreciate your time. You'll be back next week. We'll also have Maddie Levine on the show previewing upcoming card. Daniel, before we do sign off, man, please tell people where they can go and see all of your content. You're one of the best in the business, man, and keep doing what you have been doing.
Oh, don't flatter me too much. But you can catch all my stuff. It's on my Twitter at Gumby Vreeland. And you can check out the Top Turtle MMA podcast. We got interviews this week with the aforementioned Jamey-Lyn Horth and Caio. And you can check out my gambling podcast, the Sports Gambling Podcast Network's MMA Gambling Podcast. You can check that out at sportsgamblingpodcast.com.